What is up, down and sideways, all you beautiful individuals? Welcome to another episode of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you beauties for week 2/3 domestic power rankings. Definitely some movement amongst the top and bottom squads. And are there some surprises? Well, there's always some surprises. There's definitely drama when you're talking about LCK action. And of course, no team is more at the forefront of drama than T1. But we'll start at the bottom of this board because we had a titanic head-to-head showdown between the winless OK Savings Bank Brion and the DN Freaks. And let me tell you, it was a bit of a sad game 3. It was like 5-1 in kill score for like 20 minutes. It just really felt like, and we've seen this in other series, the Freaks just kind of rolled over and waited to lose.
Oh, and it's just so, there's an extra tinge of pain when it's against an opponent like the Bros, and it's not meant to be a disrespect or anything towards the Bros, but it's just a realization of where they are in the standings and what the goals of these different organizations are and where you are at this point. And everybody is a loser stepping away from this match is the way that it feels, given what we saw and given the expectations for both of these teams.
Especially now the new format, it's not like you're sitting pretty trying to not just don't be 10th. Just don't be 10th. We're back to more, bottom 3-4 teams or see you later. And I think there's a very big gap. Even when you throw in DRX here at 8, I'm feeling like there's way more positives to talk about for DRX than either Bro or DNF right now.
Oh, big time. You're massively climbing up that ladder when you're talking about what type of aspirations, what type of goals can be within your sight in the LCK in a realistic terms. When you're looking at DRX, we have seen them have enough teeth, have enough coordination to put together a test for any of these teams, whether it's one of these squads at the very top of the LCK or one of these teams that's just in that playoff bubble type of tier. DRX can be a competitor. Are you going to bet on them being a competitor night after night after night? I don't think that's the wisest of choices, but to separate them and, to understand that there is a titanic gap between 8 and 9 and 10 really is an understatement for the LCK.
They've at least shown, DRX that is, that they can have some level of pushback against teams higher than them in the standings. Haven't gotten that out of the bottom two. KT and BFX also had that head-to-head, and this is the first... Listen, KT's first 3 matches were against the top 3 teams in the LCK. So finally playing a not top team, they come away with the win. It was a pretty convincing Game 3 win. BDD absolutely bodies Vikla in that mid-lane matchup.
I don't know if we're going to go through, and you can extend this outside of the LCK too. I don't think we're going to get through this split without seeing a more heroic, more individual effort than what BDD is going to be putting out here for KT Rolster. He has been at that very top of his individual performance that we have, been able to track throughout the course of his long and steady career in the LCK. So to get this type of performance at this point in his career for KT and to see it so barren around him with the effort and actual contributions, disappointing, but yes, you laid it out. KT, at the very least, they get to put some results in the win column, given that it's not against one of these monsters at the top of the LCK.
And again, case in point, all you have to look is you had perfect Doc Dom and Wei going into the Challenger scene. We've seen Paddock and Casting come up. They get a win. The Prompto starters from the split were losing in the Challenger League, where KT was already undefeated before they came in. So this is what BDD and Cuz are working with, guys.
Yeah, and so it should be as clear as day, a type of picture about KT Rolster, and whether anything is going to be positive, it's about BDD. And is he having that heroic effort on the day? Is he getting traction with that? And enough not going wrong for the rest of the team members to negate what BDD's effort is able to put forth on some of those rounds.
We also learned this week that Nongshim is not quite ready for the late night lights against the Gen.G matchup where they got kind of destroyed. They bounced back against DRX, but they are absolutely the token bubble team heading into that top 4, that they're better than everybody else, but not quite at that elite level yet.
And they're filling out into that role of being that bubble team of where if any of these upper teams underestimate, don't prepare for them, you know that this is going to be a Nongshim team that is ready, that is prepared and hungry for any type of upset matchup. So you do need to be careful about them there, but you're right to say that I think it was maybe a little bit too early, lights a bit too bright for the Nongshim boys and Lehens to step out against Gen.G.
And even though they have that nice 3-1 start, doesn't matter how bad you feel, how angry you are at T1 for benching Guma, how highly you're weighing them getting absolutely smashed by Hanwha Life. 4 is as low as you can put this squad, even with D+, putting up a solid showing against Gen.G, maybe throwing game 2 a little bit. But T1 is like, 4th is the bare minimum you can put them right now.
Even if you're a certified T1 hater, you'd have a hard
Lots
time
of them. Lots of you guys out there.
Throwing them behind Nongshim in that situation. Now, are we a week or two away from a situation where Nongshim could leapfrog T1? Yeah, I think that is a fair statement to say about the LCK. But given right now, and even just fresh off of that dismantling by Hanwha Life, you have to hold T1 in this spot. The talented players are there. How many times have we talked a year? How many years has it been that we talk about Faker individually struggling in this spring middle type of split, MSI type of territory? And all of a sudden at the end of the year, we're talking about him as the GOAT, as the world champion at the end of it all. So I'm not ready to sell out T1 just yet. And I think that they can hold on into this last of the top 4 spots for the LCK.
I mean, Faker, you can look out at his career, even going back to previous eras of T1, and you got to take kind of the ankle weights off the regular season. You got to mail it in a little bit, especially in this new 3-split format. There's going to be more games than ever. Absolutely do not overreact with the GOAT struggling or having a slump in the middle of the regular season of the second split, which is kind of already broken into 2 splits. So no panicking going there. I'm maybe panicking if I'm Gen.G because I feel the breath of Hanwha on your neck just coming for you, coming online against T1. The bigger takeaway, again, from that T1 series should be Hanwha Life, when they are laser focused, are absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, this is a Hanwha Life that is going to be more often able to dial in, able to focus and channel that effort and skill that we have seen them capture LCK championships with, and be at the very forefront of international events as well. So that is going to be where you're expecting and where you are feeling that pressure if you are a Gen.G. A Gen.G, which let's be honest, has done everything right to start out this split. There is no real blemish, no mistake, no nitpicking whatsoever when you're talking about what has been great, what has been good about this Gen.G team at the top of the LCK. But there is no way that they aren't feeling that pressure. They aren't a little bit scared, a little bit antsy, knowing that this Hanwha Life team is roaring back into form, back into contention, and being able to put out results at that ultimate elite level where you've got Zeus doing what Zeus does in the top side, Peanut and his mastermind jungle now and where he has become in his career, Zeka and how he has emerged as one of these threats of the elite tier in the mid lane in the LCK, and of course, can't be forgetting about going down to the bottom lane and the damage that Viper is able to dish out. This is a Hanwha Life team that is going to be in that consideration and gonna have their titanic throwdown against Gen.G. Let's all get our popcorn ready for it.
And listen, even D+, it feels like it's a bit of a mental boom, mental block against squads like T1, like Gen.G, and getting over the hump, because we've seen that they are capable to be in that elite status. It just takes one poorly advised or incredibly ill-advised Baron or team fight, whatever throw it is that's happened over the years. If they can get over that mental hurdle, D+ also right there in that contender status. The contender status is narrowing a bit in the LEC side of things, as it's G2, it's still such a weird format and schedule so far for the LEC, where some teams have played almost twice as many series as others, which is a little bit wacky. But much like the LCK, it's just a little bit of leapfrog back and forth for the bottom of the table. We had Rogue and GX both lost, but Giant X, the series against SK, despite some Herculean efforts from Jackies with a clean Ahri Quadra, not enough to even pick up a game against SK.
It's painful having to talk about Giant X at this point. I didn't think we'd get this bad. Even thinking that, about when I was talking about them at this is a pivot point. Either you improve, you build upon last split and keep going up, or it's going to be that slope. It's just going to be keep sliding on down. And that's not where I predicted things would end up for this team. And it has been actually a steeper slide down than I think anyone could have anticipated so far in this spring split for them. Because even outside of momentary glimpses of that talent, of that prospect that we talked about with Jackie's, so much of it is falling around, with him and outside of him for this Giant X team.
And it's not like they're throwing away games. It's not like they're close in a lot of these matchups. They're completely outmatched, same as Rogue. And again, similar to the LCK, this bottom two feels like 600 miles apart from anyone else in the LEC, because this trio of Vitality, BDS, and SK, you feel like any three of them could step up to be a playoff level team. And Vitality's a tough one because, again, 3 series. They've only played 3 best of series alongside G2. That's the lowest in the entire league.
It's one of those ones where you can't convince yourself. You can't have that conversation, separate yourself and try and talk to it type of thing, of these bottom 2 teams improving, getting better, finding that resistance in the rest of the LEC. But then you step up that tier. You're talking about Vitality, talking about SK. You're looking at these teams that you have seen enough from them that you think that, okay, keep putting that foot in front of the other. Keep moving forward. Keep improving on things here, there, and there. And you are going to find yourself climbing up the ladder of the LEC, becoming one of these teams that sharpens themselves up towards these top tier teams that you have within the region. You can't say that about the bottom 2 with Giant X and Rogue.
Ooh, you definitely can't. It's hard to pinpoint. You're looking for a needle in a haystack in terms of positivity out of them. Maybe the most positive climb of the week, though, is Team Heretics. They kicked things off with an impressive 3-game series win against BDS, and then they close things out with this absolutely nutty Karmine Corp series, which part of the reason why KC gets bumped down is they probably had no business winning this series. They came from behind in both of their wins. They got kind of smashed in the first game. It really felt like this could have been a 3-0 series for Team Heretics, let alone a 1-2-1 that they ended up losing.
Which, let's be fair, give some praise, give some roses over to the Heretics side for getting this accomplished and getting it done. This is one of those things, we were tracking the young players with them and saying that they have probably overperformed given what the expectations were for this group and what they've already put out. And then, kind of after that statement, maybe it was a little bit too early as far as talking about that. They get knocked down a little bit, but here's the bounce back. Here is that resilience that you wanted to see from them within a series, and you got to see it against Karmine Corp. You're not taking too many points away from Karmine Corp in this one because, again, it is very, very tangible to find different avenues, different choices within that game that do end up with Karmine Corp regaining control, having the chance to end it out. But you do get a little bit of a downgrade from that one, and it is one of these ones where it causes a little bit of pause, a little bit of concern because of the pace that is kept up by the rest of the top teams in the LEC, that now Karmine Corp finds themselves 1.5 steps behind given this loss to Heretics.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you start looking back a few series back for Karmine Corp. Yeah, sure, a 4-1 record looks great. They're sitting at the top of the table. But they're bordering on fraud watch. If you're actually paying attention, I mean, this series, it was incredibly evident. The Fnatic series was another one where you felt like they were outplayed in actually 3 of the games. They obviously ended up losing that series, but the inconsistency that we're getting out of some of the core members on this squad, because when Yike and Targamas have a bad game, it's really bad. And, to kick off first stand, that happened in their first 2 series. It was really bad. And I think Vladdy's been underperforming a little bit early on in this spring split. Camilo definitely got the better of that matchup in this latest series. Humanoid kind of slammed him. So I'm not ready to call it a sophomore slump or anything, but the record doesn't tell the full story of the level of KC right now.
It feels a little bit like the guy that stepped on a spider and then telling the rest of the town, it's going to rain today. I'm telling you, I stepped on that spider.
It sounds crazy.
every once in a while comes through, does happen just like that type of thing. So yeah, I'm willing to listen to the calls for caution on Karmine Corp. I think there still is more than enough positive, more than enough time to really retool yourself and re-strengthen for that top half of the LEC. But right now it is one of those ones where things are brought more into question given the loss to Heretics, and then that, further reflection on what has happened this split. And you compare it to a squad just above them, Movistar Koi, who have had we called it again, the best disaster start possible, have only continued to climb, continue to improve, and continue to impress as the rest of their schedule was easier than that first week. But they have done everything that you could have asked for. It's check mark, check mark, check mark for the Movistar Koi squad.
Yeah, in terms of the on the Rift product, they've kind of gone the opposite direction since that series against KC. They've got the second highest team KDA and the second fastest game time of anyone in the league, which is actually surprising for them. We kind of touched on this, but they're being much better at closing out games, being less risky, doing it calm, cool, collected. So that's why, even though they got a worse record, we got them ahead of KC, feeling better about them right now. Same with Fnatic. Obviously, they have the head-to-head win, so it's a little bit easier. But G2, the gap is getting a little bit further. Again, only 3 series against some of the weaker teams, but they haven't even given up a single Baron yet.
I feel good about this top 4, top 3, whatever you want to call it for the LEC. The problem is I feel really good about number 1. And number 1 is G2 eSports and the way that they have been going about things. They get the extra added bonus cherry on top of the surprise Sunday of caps extending until 2027. You've locked up the franchise, the region's franchise player for your team. Get all that out the windows, all the focus back onto the Rift, anything else type of thing, all distractions away for G2 eSports. And they have shown on the Rift how focused they are with their gameplay and how things have been going. We talked about it many other times, just checking in with them. Seem to be focused on incorporating, working on integrating in guys like Skumon and Lebrov, even more so than it was in that first part of the winter split. You're seeing it come through in this spring split now, and you are seeing this team develop the chemistry and cohesion together, and it's equaling a stronger G2 eSports out there on Summoner's Rift.
They still have had one of the easiest schedules, so we won't overreact too much, but so far things looking very good for G2 eSports. They're looking very good for a squad like FlyQuest in the LTA as well. 4 best of 1s, woohoo. A lot of these guys are still talking about just waiting for best of 3s. That's when the split will actually begin, but we still got a little bit of movement because Loki had far and away his best weekend of the split so far. Well, I mean, that's only 1 of 2, but he looked fantastic against 2 weaker squads, but the synergy looks to be there for Cloud9, so they get bumped up a little. Team Liquid and Lion, they kind of had this big head-to-head where you see, is Lion maybe ready to step in to that top 4? Not yet, but there's more potential and more growth out of this team than I think most people were expecting.
Depending on how you feel about 100 Thieves, I'm willing to accept Leon above, or however you want to swap.
It's close,
teams. It's very close, and I think we're probably, let's be honest, if things continue the way that they're going, we're only a week away from having that swap happen for real on the power rankings type of list as what we've seen in the LTA. Yes, you laid it out. FlyQuest at that very top, very stable within that position as the top team within the region, and what we have seen continued from this group that has returned. But you laid it out. Loki giving out a performance for Cloud9 that has you thinking that there's a possibility that this team can continue to climb, continue to challenge, and maybe usurp a squad like FlyQuest at the very top of the throne of the LTA.
Yeah, right now it feels like Cloud9. Again, best of 1s, these rankings are so unbelievably volatile because you're basing so much of the stake on a single game. But right now, it feels like Cloud9 has the highest ceiling to be that rival to them because we've seen Team Liquid, we've seen them at an international event not perform well. I don't want to say we've seen the peak or max that we can get out of TL because I don't think that's been the case in all of 2025 yet, but it's more of a question mark how good Cloud9 can be.
It almost feels like, I don't know how to go too crazy here, but a golf analogy, right? When you're going from trying to take off massive numbers of strokes off of your handicap, well, it's relatively easy because you are improving. You're making these strides type of things. But once you are good to great, getting to that excellent level, shaving off only one, maybe 2 strokes off of the scorecard, that's incredibly difficult to find that type of difference. And that's where it feels like maybe more so for Team Liquid with this team, with this iteration, that it is almost at that very peak, almost at that ultimate level for them. But to get that extra little bit of good and greatness that does get them across the finish lines in some of these important situations is that difficult challenge for them. But when you look at what is available with Cloud9, with the potential of guys like Loki and Thanatos, with the combined veteran, status that you get from your bottom lane of Sven and Vulcan and even Blabber, throw them into that equation, and Cloud9 has got an easier path to continue this improvement, to continue to sharpen themselves up and raise that power level against FlyQuest.
Well, then it should be super easy for squads like Dig and DSG to really climb up then, because they got a lot of things. Improve anything and you should climb up, right?
Doesn't always work exactly like that in these type of situations. Yes, lots to improve on for both of them. I think when you're talking about this bottom tier of the LTA, at the very least, going to give a shout out to your boys Shopify Rebellion, who we've seen load up in a round or so, but have been at least as strong or the strongest contributor to viewership within a week. Viewership for the LTA.
Going to be more with Ludwig next week.
Welcome on in, Ludwig coming on in. We're not going to have his boyfriend Connor coming into the arena, so it's not going to be the full fan fest, but we're good. We're bringing in Ludwig, and we're going to have a fun time with these games.
Yeah, and I think I'm pretty sure that's the disguised matchup, so maybe Toast will pop over, and we'll have that rivalry for absolute Titanic showdown with 2 teams combined for 1 win.
Yeah, and like, hey, at least it's a super week within the LTA, and that's a super
final week of best of ones, by the way.
So exactly. So at the very least, you get maybe a little extra incentive to tune in, even if it is best of ones, knowing that it is this extra super week type situation. And then with the extra cherry of knowing, well, we're done with best of ones, moving on to best of threes, and it is going to be a nice way to wipe the slate clean.
Yeah, and it's actually Monday games. First time in several years I feel like there's been any LTA or LCS games on a Monday. But yeah, 3 days of action, going to be the last of the best of ones before we head into that next round of the LTA. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Absolute beauties. Thanks for hanging out as always, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.